I got you. Yeah, I agree with that. I always tell people the average customer journey is weeks or decades long. You didn't buy your car because of the salesperson at the car dealership, right? They're basically just they're a cashier more often than not. And the problem is every customer journey profile is different, right? You and I might buy the exact same thing, but that touch point of the Facebook ad and the YouTube ad and the search and the email are all wildly different. So it's effectively impossible to truly model each individual customer journey to say who gets credit for what. And I hear you on the pain point of trying to get the client to buy into that. And I think that's a pain point a lot of people have, although I love that for you, it's an appreciation of that's how we should be looking at it.
Yeah.
Although maybe that's not how we can get, our clients aren't there yet to appreciate that that's what we're doing. And I think that's a very real world example of you as a business are getting clients and this is what they're asking for. So you're delivering it, even though you know what they're asking for might not be exactly what they need, but you're also helping their business in general. And hey, at the end of the day, people are giving you their money to do a job. Your job is to deliver on what they need. And we can't all be completely blue sky altruistic with our end goals because, food costs money. Absolutely. Like, I get that. I guess very interesting. Yeah. Cause I found that one of the first things that I try to do is explain the concept of incremental lift. And I show people the shape of the curve and the level of impact that any marketing channel has on something else. And one of the reasons that I try to have a very simple ad account is because it means that Facebook, if I can get the entire ad account, say, down to one campaign, running at CBO, it becomes very easy for me to say, I've got a 10% margin on my target CPA. I'm allowed to spend 50 to get there. I'm at 45. I know that I could increase my budget by 11%, even if I don't get any other attributed sales to this channel. Even if I don't make any sales across the business, I'm still at my goal, which means that managing each individual channel becomes incredibly simple. And I find that managing that bigger piece is usually a goal. I guess with that in mind, just before we head out, I always teach people that my optimal Facebook ad account setup is basically a single campaign with an ad set targeting broad with my winning post IDs and one or two dynamic creatives. Putting into there to give Facebook better quality options for me as an advertiser to provide content that meets their business needs of attracting attention so that ultimately I'm improving my CPMs over time. And Facebook effectively gives me also something we didn't talk about, but I'm getting the second ad in the feed, not the ad that shows up 15 minutes into a doom scroll because I'm a higher quality advertiser. Not only is my inventory cheaper, but my quality is better. So with that being said, do you feel like there is an optimal Facebook ad account setup or someplace you're trying to get most of your clients to, or is it very specific on the client?
It's going to be dependent on what the client is offering, I feel. I would say that most of our client accounts are going to follow a very simple structure that's pretty similar to what you described. It's going to normally have a little bit more going on targeting wise, but I would say the cold audience targeting option that is most likely to produce the best results for us is going to be broad targeting. So I'm by no means against broad targeting. We use it all the time. But I don't think it's the right tool for every business to have that sort of setup. I do believe in simpler account structures. I first started advertising on Facebook at the end of 2013 and sort of 2014, 2015, it was all about the 9-step. Video A, video B, video C, video, And I was always a bit skeptical of that, and that's certainly not something that we would set up, anymore. So we would have a simpler structure. I do think that one of the big advantages of simpler structures, beyond it's not a bad setup at all to go with like what you described. I think in some circumstances you're going to see better results with something different. But I think one of the things that does do is it does really focus the mind, right? It focuses the mind on the parts that are going to be more important to your success on the platform, which is going to be what you're offering and the ads themselves, the parts that people actually see. But there are other businesses where I think I would, you mentioned FIFA, and I think for me that would be a good analogy. And I would think about it as like, depending on which team you're using, let's say you're trying to win a tournament, different teams have different strengths, and therefore you're going to want to play in a slightly different style depending on, right, we've got really fast wingers, or if we got, guy up front that can score. So there's all sorts of stuff like that. So I would say different businesses need different different sales funnel structures, and then that informs the ad account. So like we said, with the really high-end service providers, I'm going to force some impressions on certain stuff, because if we're advertising, you know, a home remodeling business and their average customer value is $250,000, we don't care if the cost per lead doubles or triples. We want that quality. So
sure. In that use case, you're smashing retargeting aggressively because the margin is allowing you to do it.
Exactly that. Yeah. Whereas with other businesses, you know, if we're selling $20 e-commerce products, no, we're not gonna do that at all.
One thing that you said here, I just would love to close out on, is saying that broad targeting might not always be the way for the interest of top of funnel and filling the funnel and prospecting. So I'm curious for you what those other options might look like.
So we'll still use the range of cold audience targeting that, you know, people have used for years and we've used for years. We will still occasionally use interest-based targeting, and we will still use lookalikes. Often the way we will structure a campaign when we first start working with a client, particularly if it's a relatively newish ad account, let's say, we almost never work with someone who's not run any ads before. They've got proof of concept, which is good. Is we might create, you know, multiple targeting options and run them simultaneously. Run a broad targeting option, an interest, or two lookalikes, and we will often go with the ones that we see produce the best results. Now we will retest, because we know as an account matures, we're likely to see better results with the broader options. But we will often test like that, and we still do see some accounts perform better not with a broad targeting option, and that's measured on a pretty short-term cost per conversion basis usually. It's definitely shifting over time. Like, we wouldn't use broad hardly at all, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, and it's definitely going more and more that way. Like, more and more often we see that be the best performing targeting option, but not always, not yet.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think I was in the biz about 5 years, and then I was part of the disruptor group, and Power 5 came out, and I was like, I didn't trust broad, and it took me about 6-9 months to like make the switch in, I don't know, 2018, 2019, something like that. So I totally hear you, especially that timeline. That sounds very familiar. I guess I'll finish with this, and just kind of curious about your question on it, and then we can wrap up, is on the efforts of interest groups and lookalikes. For me, I've found that my confidence in Facebook's data and what it's able to leverage might not be the best. And I think everybody can kind of feel that way. So with respect to an interest group, you know, I know that the interest group team at Facebook basically there hasn't been an engineer there in a long time. So it's a software that's kind of set up. And I know that it's not 100% tracking to this person actually is defined well as an interest group and not. And talking about something doesn't necessarily imply positive or negative sentiment or intent. And so for me, that's always been if 1/3 of this audience is here by mistake, and half the people in this audience feel negatively about something, and then half the people that feel positively might have buying intent, I've gotten it down to maybe 1/6, 1/4 of that audience is actionable for me. And I know that I'm paying extra to reach them, because you were in Facebook back in the day when they showed you how much each one of those additional audiences, the Datalogics is going to add $1. This interest group is 28 cents, and they've hid that. I don't feel like the kids that's got in 2018 that are the new, you know, agency owners, because they got really good when it was a bull market, understand all of that. But then also when it comes to a lookalike, like, I've turned to view a 1% lookalike as effectively a 99% exclusion. And I'm doing that basically saying, Facebook, here's data. I don't necessarily trust your data. So I'm going to give you data of 1,000, maybe 10,000 people or more. I don't necessarily trust your ability, how you view this information, but please use it. And of that 10,000 email addresses I upload, maybe it actually matches 7,000 or 6,000, because some don't match up and all of that stuff. To then extrapolate out a 98% exclusion for my audience, that costs me extra. that depreciates in value. I guess that's my pain point. So I'm curious, one, if you're thinking about it that way, or two, if you do, and honestly, just the way that you've seen the results, maybe from what you're saying is initially I get better results, but over time I move away from it. Is that sort of what you're saying?
That does happen. Yeah. So I think again, what you said in theory is correct. But when we launch new campaigns, we still do see, let's say over the first 14 days, we still do see better results sometimes with lookalike audiences or interests, or other detailed targeting options, as opposed to going broad. The percentage of the time where we see it during those 2 weeks, the percentage of the time where we see broad not being the best option during those 2 weeks is decreasing. So like it is becoming more likely that it's going to be the best option from day one. And I think that's going to continue to happen. We're going to see it go more and more that way. But we still see it. And whilst we still continue to see that, we're going to sort of be led by the data within that client's account and go that way. But yeah, we will retest, because we know that as that account matures, as we get more conversions registered in it, we are more likely to move towards broad options. That is, and there's rarely going to be an account, like let's say we're not a high-end service advertiser here. We're advertising a lower end service, a digital business, an e-commerce business, something like that. Once that account has generated, let's say, thousands of conversions, we're almost certainly going to be broad targeting at that point.
What I love about that is there is the blue sky perfect architecture from day one, and then the practical application of how we start and then build a bridge to get to where we might want to go. And it seems like you and I ultimately have the same end goal, just maybe how we get there is, like you said on FIFA, maybe a slightly different setup, which I think is great. And I think that's really great information, because at the end of the day, I think people don't often get to see us talk about the entire journey. And if it takes 2 weeks to get that account to set up, and also if I know that I'm running lookalikes and interest groups against broad is going to have all the low-hanging fruit stolen by those other audiences. But as I deprecate more and more of those, broads get smarter and smarter, and eventually I just transition to completely that. Which sounds like what
and we're trying to manage that client relationship. We do not want, particularly when we start working with a client and they've run campaigns before, we know it's important to get them something early doors, because if we come in and we say, look, your results are going to get worse, they're going to be better in 3 months' time or whatever time frame it is, that's not normally something that they'll tolerate. So we're trying to manage that client relationship, and if we can get that improvement in results over the next 2 to 4 weeks when we first start, then we'll take that, because I think that helps set everyone up a little bit better emotionally within the process.
I love that. It's a great structure, and that communication, I think, is very key in setting those expectations, giving them like maybe a 90-day window for everything. Well, Ben, I know we're a little bit over here, and I do appreciate your time. I'll let you go. I just want to say thanks a lot. And I mean, hey, look, if you have anything that you want to tell people where you're at, I've been following you. I've been noticing you for a long time. I've been in the space for nearly a decade. You've been in the space for nearly a decade. I guess actually over a decade for both of us now, which is terrifying.
I think I was late 2013, so I'm not quite there.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think we're coming up on that 10-year mark. I don't know what the 10-year anniversary is, but I need to get a plaque that says I survived.
I'll be there in like November, I think, something like that.
yeah, something like that. I think for me, it was like October 2012, I think, is more or less when I got in. But yeah, all that fun stuff. But just in an interest of making sure that we get to, if people did like this and did want to reach you, just quick plugs or anything else.
Thanks a lot. Very good to chat. It's good we finally were trying to find a date and we managed to get something fit in, which is interesting. And I'm always happy to have like thoughts questioned or theories on, can we do things better this way? And like we've both been in this long enough to know that things have changed a ton. So you can't just be stuck in like, you have to be willing to update and change things. Otherwise, if we all still running the same campaigns we were running like 7-8 years ago, they would not work. That's for sure. They would not.
No, we have a conversion pixel now. Like you couldn't run what you were running 9 years ago.
Yeah, when the very first, you're like, well, we run a page likes campaign and we build that up, and then you get organic reach, and things have changed a lot since those days.
Yeah. Trauma from those old days.
Yes, yeah. So I mean, if people want to find my stuff, if they want to know more about, what I think on Facebook, Instagram ads, then my YouTube channel is the best place. And then from there, I mentioned like website and all sorts from
I love it. And it's just Ben Heath, right? Type it in. It's hard to miss. Simple name. It is the way you think it'd be spelled. And
it's all easy.
It's all easy. So Thank you
Yeah.
very much, man. I really do appreciate it. And I'll talk to you later. If that
Yeah,
works for
great.
you.
Awesome.
All right.
Thanks, Chaz. Thanks, mate.
See ya.